Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria of Through the Peacock's Eyes. Welcome to my channel. First of all, I want to give a big thank you to everyone out there who's been purchasing my two specials I am running right now. One of them is a special reading called the Enchanted Map Guidance Reading, and the other one is 25% off my online tarot course called Exploring the Symbolic Language of the Tarot. So if you're interested in either of those, I will link the video explaining those specials on screen at the end of this video, or you can go to my channel page and find it there. Okay, so this video I'm going to talk about how I got introduced to and how I learned tarot. Now I discussed some of this in my vlog. I think the vlog's titled How I Got on My Spiritual Path, something like that. So some of this will be repeating that. But I've had clients and people taking my online course ask me, how did I learn tarot? Did I take an online course? How did I get into this? So first of all, I had a very spiritual childhood. Astrology was just something I was always interested in. Talking about ghosts and spirits was just kind of a normal thing. So everything kind of in the esoteric realm was not unusual. I'll say it that way. However, I was not introduced to or familiar with tarot cards, or I don't even think oracle cards when I was little. I think I kind of knew people use playing cards for fortune telling, things like that. Like if you go to a fair or playgrounds or things like that, and they have like that mechanical gypsy that does this on playing cards. Like I kind of knew cards were used for fortune telling or divination, and of course later on spiritual guidance. But I was not familiar with tarot cards or even oracle cards till much later. Now, it was in 1996 when someone first gave me my first tarot deck, and it was a boyfriend I was dating at the time. He wasn't using it. He didn't want it. I was curious about it. And that's the first deck I had. But I realized recently that I actually had an experience with tarot before that, and it's actually a very funny experience. So a lot of you are going to laugh about this. So at least those of you in the US, I don't know, maybe Canada, there's this TV personality called Miss Cleo, and she has these long ads on TV, call in and get your fortune told or something. So actually, I think it was either 1995 or 1996. I think it was that winter. So one of those years around that time in the winter, I decided to call Miss Cleo. And that just sounds so funny right now, but for some reason, I just thought, what the heck? I'm gonna give it I saw the commercial on TV, and I thought, I'm curious. I wanna know what this is about. So that was actually my first experience with tarot, which is so funny. And I remembered that recently because as some of you know, sometimes I buy decks because I need to spend a few more dollars on to get free shipping on Amazon. It's just a funny little thing I do. And so I usually scan, okay, what are decks for like $5? Does it look interesting, fun, interesting thing to add to my collection? Well, I found Miss Cleo's Tarot Power Deck. It's just a basic Rider-Waite system deck, but I thought it would be so funny to have it. In case you're curious what it looks like, it's very Egyptian themed. The creepy thing though is that all the eyes are like flesh colored, skin colored. No one has eyeballs. So it's just a funny little deck to have. I don't use this for clients or anything. I just thought it would be funny to have it since I remembered that that was my first exposure to tarot. Okay, so it was later in 1996 when the boyfriend I had at the time gave me his deck. And I studied it for a while. It was sort of like, I call it download overload. It was just like, whoa, what is this? And I tried to work with it for a while, and I kind of put it away. And then I slowly started to look online and study the meanings of the cards and try to, okay, what is this system? What is this all about? And I think I studied a little bit of playing cards then too, which I have some playing cards to do readings with, but I would say I'm not experienced enough to work with them with clients. I tend to refer to the equivalent in tarot, which is fine, but I know there's a slightly different system with the playing cards. So I started studying online, and in the late 90s, there wasn't a whole lot out there. It was just sort of starting to build, but that's how I really started to study tarot. And then later on in, I think it was 2004, possibly 2005. Again, it was like over that winter, so one of those years. I was gifted my second deck, and both of these first two decks were the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Now I have a Rider-Waite-Smith deck here. It is my third one. I don't have those previous other two. They got worn out. I think one disappeared in a move, and the other one just got worn out, and I replaced it with this one. So, you know, our well-known Rider-Waite Tarot. So this is the deck I used to study, and when I looked up stuff online, it would have this deck. So this is my foundation for tarot, the Rider-Waite system. However, I did read a book on tarot that was written by a friend of mine who's a spiritual counselor who I get readings from, who I talk to still, and that's been going on for 12, 13 years. I read her book. It wasn't mine. A friend had loaned it to me, actually the friend who gave me my second deck. So I don't have that book, but I do have my little notepad of my little handy dandy notes I took, basic key points for all the cards. So I still have this, found it tucked away in a book, but I guess the textbook I used when I began studying even further, so from like 1996 to 2004-ish, I mostly studied online and with practice, experience, practice readings for myself, practice doing readings for friends and loved ones. I mean, experience is a huge piece of learning something. But then there is always learning the basics, the foundation, the text, the symbolism. That helps as well. It's like combining the two and then bringing in your intuition. So the textbook I used to study tarot is the Book of Thoth. So I used studying the Thoth Tarot, which is a pip deck, so the minors don't have the, it's not so scenic, but the images that the Rider-Waite system has. But it's like I learned kind of on two different systems, Rider-Waite and then Thoth, which is totally fine, but that's sort of how I learned tarot. And after reading this, I mean, this was like an amazing read when I read it at the time. Interesting though, I've never had any desire to get the Thoth deck, the Crowley deck. I've worked with the deck and the artwork in some of the private tutoring I've done for teaching tarot. But for some reason, I've just never been drawn to buy the deck myself. But I love this book. It was a great study book. So that's how I was introduced to tarot, how I got into studying tarot, and I would say we're always learning. There's always more to learn, and especially nowadays. So I guess I've been studying and working with tarot, I guess for 22 years. That sounds very strange to say. But you know, with the new decks coming out, especially very unique decks, eclectic ones that don't follow a Rider-Waite or Thoth or a Marseille system, they kind of branch off in their own way. It just opens up all these new like classrooms of study, basically studying with different decks. So that's how I learned tarot. I hope you like my Miss Cleo story. I think it's hilarious looking back now, but I have to say, I remember that her reading was quite accurate. It was very accurate, surprisingly. Maybe not surprisingly, I don't know. I think she's still out there doing readings. I don't know, I don't watch TV, so I have no idea. But yeah, I remember everything she said basically happened. It was true. Quite accurate. So, okay, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for stopping by. Like this video if you liked it. You can unlike it if you didn't like it. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, and I'll see you back here soon.